This is not financial advice. I'm recording my thoughts about a high risk, high reward stock. When I say high risk, high reward, it means that there is more probability that it will go to zero or stay where it is than doing a 2x to 5x in the next few years. The stock I'm going to talk about is SoFi. In full disclosure, I have invested about $3,000 in this stock. So I own about 500 stocks at about $6 stock price. This is one of my high risk, high reward bets, and I think they are a real business. I do know that there are some people who would disagree with me, but this is my personal opinion. I will talk about the reward part first and then discuss the risks later. In the reward part, I am estimating that SoFi could do about 3x to about 10x in the next 4 to 5 years. I'm going to give further details now. As we all know, SoFi is 3 companies in one. They have 3 revenue generating businesses. The first one is lending, in which they do loans like student loans, personal loans, and home loans. Second is financial services, in which we can do money transfer using SoFi Money app, and we can do stock trading, etc. The third revenue stream is technology, which consists of Galileo and Technisys. They have paid $1 billion each for these companies to acquire them. In 2022, they are on track to make about $1.5 billion of revenue and achieve 50% growth rate. So in the next few years, I'm going to assume the 50% growth rate, in which they would make about $5 billion of revenue in 2025. Out of this $5 billion, I'm assuming that they would make about $3 billion in lending, $1 billion of revenue in the technology business, and $1 billion of revenue in the financial services. In my opinion, they are doing the right things to achieve these targets. For the case of lending, they have a bank charter and the student loan moratorium is ending this December. So SoFi will regain their momentum with the student loan refinancing. Before the pandemic, they were doing about $2 billion of student loans per quarter, and due to the student loan moratorium, it dropped by about 80%. Since the student loan moratorium is ending end of this year, they should be able to reaccelerate their growth in lending. The second is technology business, in which they have acquired both Galileo and Technisys. As I said before, this is a B2B business, and SoFi CEO is saying that there's a lot of interest from other banks, even the large banks, to use these 2 products. If SoFi can convert these interests into deals, I think $1 billion product revenue in 2025 with technology is definitely possible. And the last one is financial services with the SoFi Money app. And for this, they have to do a lot of branding. A lot of youth already use Venmo and Cash App, and they need to know about the offerings of SoFi to download the SoFi Money app. I feel SoFi is going in the right direction by executing a deal with a stadium as well as an NFL star. So currently their branding awareness stands at 4%. If it increases to 7 or 8%, that should definitely recruit more people into the financial services app. So for that reason, I think $1 billion of revenue in financial services is also possible. So I have laid out my assumptions about the net profit margins and multiples with which the company would be about $15 billion worth in 2025. And currently they have about 800 million shares. SoFi is known for diluting shareholders, so I'm assuming that they would dilute us further, and 1 billion dining share count in 2025, with which we'll come up with $15 stock price in 2025. But wait, currently it's at about $5, right? So that's about a 3x or 200% gain. Now let's look at the other case in which a 10x is possible. I'm going to apply a price to sales of 10. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if SoFi does near perfect execution and the hype stays as it is, I think people are going to pay 10 price to sales multiple for this company. So with a price to sales multiple of 10 in 2025, the market cap would be about $50 billion, and that will convert to a $50 stock price with 1 billion outstanding share count in 2025. So that represents about 10x or about 900% gain in 2026. I'm not hinting that this is possible, but there's a small likelihood that they can get there. Now let's talk about the risk part. I see at least 5 risks with my investment in SoFi. The first one is the reverse stock split and the 1 billion shelf offering. In the short term, if SoFi does both of these, the stock will get decimated. We're talking about like less than $2 stock price if that happens, in my opinion. The second risk is high interest rates. If the high interest rates stay for a longer period of time, their lending division is going to suffer. Not many people would refinance their loans, and that's going to hit SoFi hard. Risk number 3 is related to the technology business. We know that SoFi paid about $2 billion to acquire Technisys and Galileo, and they paid price to sales of more than 10 for these companies. And like I said before, Anthony Noto is saying that there's a lot of interest from the other neobanks and even large financial institutions. If they cannot convert the interest into actual deals, the acquisition will be a big failure, and that is going to hit SoFi stock really hard. Risk number 4 is related to their financial services business. We do know that they're spending a lot of money in branding, but if that branding does not result in a lot of SoFi Money app downloads, then that is going to go waste, right? So that is going to hit SoFi stock really hard as well because of failed branding investment. The last risk number 5 is related to profitability. We do know that SoFi is not profitable now, and they are not expected to be profitable in the coming years. Their business model, offering a lot of money as interest to their deposit holders, is not a proven strategy yet. So if they cannot prove that they will make money off of those lending products, then that is going to hit the stock hard as well. I see this as the biggest risk out of all these 5. So there you go. This is my first high risk, high reward investment. And I'm not going to invest more than $3,000 in this stock. Even if it falls to $1 in the near future, I'm not going to sell and I'm not going to buy. 3,000 is the money that I'm ready to lose for this high risk, high reward investment. And I'm going to keep my discipline with this stock.